Now, this week's guest is a fellow debut author who shot to fame back when Twitter was good due to a viral tweet about Marks and Spencer's and Christmas dinner. His first novel, Spirit Level, came out earlier this year and is one of my favourite books of 2024. Please welcome Richy Craven.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us on You Have Me at Hello.
No, I'm very excited to be on.
Because you're a rom-com head, aren't you?
Yes, this is, me and my fiance love nothing better. I like a good rom-com, but my favourite is like a slightly terrible rom-com I can watch half drunk.
So on that note, what rom-com have you chosen?
27 Dresses.
And where does that fall in the...
It's kind of a perfect 2 bottle of wine movie.
Agreed.
Yeah. I think when we were talking about it, the reason I picked was because I think that future generations are going to judge us for 2 things, like our reckless use of fossil fuels and the fact that we didn't utilize James Marsden enough in rom-coms.
I agree again. Okay, so we're gonna get into all that. We have a lot to discuss about 27 Dresses, but first of all, let's talk about you. So, congratulations on Spirit Level. How has it been?
It's been kind of wild. I really didn't expect it to be as kind of received as well as it has.
Yeah. I
kind of assumed it would just be for like kind of comedy nerds like myself, but it's kind of reached a broader audience, and maybe just because my Irish Catholic family has spread it across the country.
I love it. So tell me how it all came about, because yourself and myself, our first novels came out within a month of one another.
Yes.
So I want to hear your story.
So like the book is about a young kind of directionalist recent graduate who feels like everybody else in his life is progressing, has got jobs, has got relationships, and he's still kind of single and stacking shelves. And then he gets into a car accident and he can see his best friend dies, and he realizes that he can see the ghost of his best friend, but only when he's drunk. So I guess the root of it, I've wanted to write a book for like 10 years, but you probably know yourself, it's very easy not to write a book. It's
very easy.
It's the easiest thing in the world is not writing a book.
Yeah. Just saying to people, I've definitely got a book in me.
Yeah.
And then just not doing it.
Or like telling people about your idea and then just never putting words.
So what was the impetus for you to actually sit down and write it?
I told my fiance the idea, and then she kind of, like, some people call their significant other their muse, and that implies that I just kind of sit there and watch her lovingly and then type. She was like my jailer. She would turn off the TV and go sit in the corner and write your book.
I love her.
Yeah, no, it's way more important to a writer to have somebody who can do that than like any kind of muse.
Yeah. So she just believed in you.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I was making all these excuses like, I don't have a laptop that works. She got me a laptop for Christmas. I was like, now you have no excuse.
What a woman.
Yeah.
Marry her quick.
That's it. Well, this is a stressful movie to watch as somebody who is planning a wedding.
Yeah, I can imagine.
The opening scene where Katherine Heigl is like picking up a wedding dress for the bride. She's like, I was watching it with Shell, and she's like, why is that being done on the wedding day?
Yeah.
And she was just like, there was a heightened anxiety there.
Well, one thing that we will discuss is the crazy differences between American weddings and Irish weddings, because there are many. I presume you're having an Irish wedding?
Yes.
You're not fecking off anywhere, or?
No. 1 day Dublin wedding.
And is it planned? Have we a date?
We have a date. It's going to be November next year.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, I love an autumn wedding. If I could do it again, I think I'd have an autumn wedding. But hopefully I won't do it again.
Yeah, it was just...
Hopefully. I mentioned the same guy.
I'm really hoping it's a one and done situation
one and
for
done,
myself
hopefully.
as well.
Well, we're going to talk about 27 Dresses. So the film came out in 2008. It was directed by a lovely lady called Anne Fletcher, and she also did the Step Up movies.
Yes.
And she did The Proposal, which is it's my husband's favourite rom-com, with Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock.
She had a good run. Those are 3
she had a great
pretty
run.
Good movies.
Yeah, big ones. And she's worked on everything from Titanic to Catch Me If You Can, but she was a choreographer and dancer. So she was the one kind of choreographing the dance scenes in Titanic, in steerage when they're having a hoolie. So she started out as a dancer and choreographer and became a director. Like, what a legend.
And there is a little bit of a choreography montage in the wedding at the start. So
absolutely.
I wonder if that's just a nod to where she came from.
Flexing her muscle memory. And then the writer was a lady called Aileen Broche McKenna. What a name. And this lady wrote the screenplay for Devil Wears Prada. So we're in iconic company here. Like, come on, girls. I love it. I love a good female writing team. So basically, the film was sort of a star vehicle for Katherine Heigl.
Yes.
Now, Katherine Heigl's an interesting gal. So she was famously on Grey's Anatomy from 2005 to 2010. So this film came right bang in the middle of that run.
Yeah, and this came after Knocked Up as well,
straight after Knocked Up, yeah. So she's been playing this kind of sexy, effervescent blonde doctor. And it's no secret in the industry that people thought she was getting a bit too big for her boots, because after Knocked Up, she kind of went on the record slagging it off. And Judd Apatow and Seth Rogen weren't thrilled with her. She kind of fucked it up. Like she said publicly then also the same year that she'd opted out of the Emmy race for Grey's because she felt the material she received didn't warrant Emmy consideration.
See, I heard this rumor as well, and
it's not a rumor.
I read up. I kind of feel the Knocked Up comments were more basically she was just saying like it's a bit sad that the guys got to be like the carefree, funny ones,
yeah.
And then I think she said that the women are kind of just shrews,
yeah.
in the movie, which is kind of accurate for Judd Apatow movies.
I mean, yes, but also like it is what it is, and she signed on knowing that she'd read the script.
You don't badmouth movies you're in, maybe.
Well, I mean, not if you're trying to be like, if Keep Quiet and Carry On, and you might be an A-list celebrity
also,
forever.
I've seen that series of Grey's Anatomy, and she's right. That was a bad storyline.
Well, it was because she was acting up.
Yeah. Was it that? So
Shonda Rhimes is famous for if someone's misbehaving, they get a bad storyline. Like she killed off poor George in his prime. She killed off Derek Shepherd. Like she's not one to mess with. And Grey's is still going. Yeah. And Katherine Heigl has actually in 2013 expressed a desire to return as Izzy Stevens, and that never happened. So don't mess with Shonda would be my advice. But this film comes when she was riding high enough. So Knocked Up had been a huge success. And Anne Fletcher, the director of 27 Dresses, loved her. She described her as having the it factor. She said, you can't buy it, you can't learn it, you can't create it. It just is. We haven't had one of her in many years. Julia Roberts, Sandra Bullock, Meg Ryan, those have been our go-to rom-com girls for a long time. But we haven't had a new one. Katie has beauty, vulnerability, identifiability. She's funny, charming, and lovely to watch. Anne loves her.
Yeah, she's very charming in that opening. The set piece where she's going between two weddings. She's the bridesmaid or the maid of honor in two weddings. And she gets into the taxi and offers him, what is it, like
$300, and she's going to deduct $20 every time he looks at her in the nude, basically.
And it's a very funny, it's a very charming piece. Like this, that they go back and forward, and like the cab driver, she's getting out, and he's like, "You're wearing the wrong shoes," and throws the shoes at her.
Matter, yeah.
I actually like it. She is very charming in this movie.
She is. She has a likability. It's just I think she got herself a bad reputation in Hollywood, and it's very difficult to come back from that, because if you get labelled as a difficult woman,
yes,
then
absolutely,
that's it. And I think I'm all for women obviously completely speaking their mind and speaking up, but you do that full in the knowledge that it might have a negative effect on your career.
Mel Gibson can come back, but if you're slightly,
if you're a belled woman, then
Yeah.
you can't. No, I think, to be honest, she wasn't. I don't think she was ever very comfortable with fame either. Like actually being a celebrity, she wanted to be an actress, not so much a world famous celebrity. Which, if you're doing it right, fame is inevitable.
I wonder if I don't think the mid 2000s was the best time to trying to be doing that. I think if it was I wonder if she had
now, she'd be fine.
Yeah, she would have a much better shot.
Yeah.
It was just the wrong.
It was the wrong time. She was ahead of her time.
Yeah,
maybe she'll come back. Who knows? She does a bit of Netflix now.
Yeah, when I was looking up for this on Disney Plus, I think there was like 3 other Katherine Heigl movies that look exactly like this on the poster.
The Ugly Truth, which it just came right after 27 Dresses, and then there's one called Life as We Know It with Josh Duhamel. And then there was a couple of big bombs. She had one in which she was playing a bounty hunter that didn't even make its money back.
I remember that one, yeah.
And she was in
The Ugly Truth. That was
Jared Butler.
Jared Butler.
And then she made that, which I think is a terribly great film, New Year's Eve. It's a Gary Marshall ensemble with like 15 celebrities. Now her storyline was pretty crap. She's playing like a chef, and she's kind of in the kitchen for the most part. I think she's in love with John Bon Jovi. Anyway, that film bombed.
Who isn't? Exactly.
That film didn't do very well, so that kind of was the final nail in her coffin. So now she does like series on Netflix.
I haven't seen those New Year's Eve those things, and now that sounds like let's get a bottle of wine.
Yeah,
and watch
it's
that
so
with the
badly
fiancé.
good. But like the cast's amazing. It's stacked. It's got Michelle Pfeiffer in it. Like it's Zac Efron. It's very, very good. I would highly recommend. So James Marsden is the romantic hero in this film, and he acted throughout the 90s in small roles. He really broke out and became a naughty stalwart thanks to his turn in X-Men as Cyclops.
Cyclops, yeah.
But for me, they're hiding his magnificent eyes
Yeah.
in that film. But they're laser eyes. They have to be covered at all times. Yes. And he doesn't do his winning smile as Cyclops, because Cyclops is an angry man.
Cyclops is, yeah, he doesn't get a lot to do as Cyclops in those movies.
He's just kind of there. Yeah. And then every now and then he takes off his glasses and burns things.
I mean, he's opposite Hugh Jackman in those roles. I think he has a love triangle with Hugh Jackman and
Jean Grey.
Jean Grey,
doesn't he? Yeah. Well, he was kind of underutilized, I think, throughout the noughties. So this is actually his first leading role.
Because he was in Hairspray before
this,
right?
But he plays the kind of secondary character. He plays Corny Collins in Hairspray, and he plays the lad that Rachel McAdams doesn't want to marry in The Notebook. So he plays the lad that she's going to marry, and Ryan Gosling comes back and she doesn't.
To be fair, that is like, if you're going to be, if you're thinking like James Marsden is going to be rejected, Ryan Gosling is probably the only person you would be like, oh no, you would reject him.
I mean, I'm personally, Team James, but I see where she was coming from. Yeah. Noah Calhoun's a good guy. So yeah, this is his first kind of starring role. And he's, like you said, luminous in it. Fabulous.
He's an aggressively attractive man, which is you see him, and there's parts where, people like Katherine Heigl is reluctant to talk to him, and Judy Greer comes up as she was my kind of surprise for watching it this time.
Oh really?
I hadn't remembered she'd been in it, which is on me.
Well, people often think that she's in every romantic comedy ever as the friend. Now, she actually wasn't in every one. She was in 13 Going on 30 and The Wedding Planner are the two kind of big ones. She's also in What Women Want, that terrible Mel Gibson film, but she's not a best friend in that. She's actually a suicidal office worker in that. But the other kind of stalwart best friend in the rom-com genre is Joan Cusack, right? Who's in literally everything else. Judy Greer is brilliant, and she has all the best lines in this film, and she plays Katherine Heigl's best mate, who's a bit cynical and she's actually a bit hurry as well, which I like. But
her line when she sees him is like, who is he and where can I get one? Yeah. And I was like, yeah, that's
Let's summarise the film. So Katherine Heigl plays this type A woman called Jane, and the film opens with, so basically this film hits like 15 different rom-com tropes. Yes. It's kind of, out of all the films that we've watched this season, this is the one that's the most rom-com-y of them all, right? Yeah. So it opens with a cute kid finding her calling, which is to be in weddings. She's a kind of emergency little flower girl, and she's decided that this is what she wants to do with her life. She has a dead mother, and that's kind of a very common thing in rom-coms. I think we figured out in an earlier episode it comes from fairy tales and having this kind of absent mother figure. So Jane is a really type A person. She works as an executive assistant, and she's the epitome of someone who's always the bridesmaid, never the bride, and she sees it as her calling in life. For her, it's a positive.
Did you think that they missed a trick by not calling this like always the bridesmaid or something?
Yeah, I wonder why they didn't.
It's unless there's something else called by it. It feels like an open goal.
There's always a reason in Hollywood if the title is a bit strange. We must look into that, because I feel that would have been a very good, instead of 27 dresses, which could be about any kind of dresses really when you think about it. But she is that perfect friend who runs everything with an iron fist. Like, she runs her hurry friend Judy Greer's life. She runs her sister's life. She runs everyone's life. And this is what I want to talk to you about, this bridesmaid culture in the US. It's so bizarre to me. So they pay for their own bridesmaids' dresses.
It does feel like a form of like indentured servitude for a period of time. It seems pretty intense.
I mean, being a bridesmaid is a big ask, right? Yeah. Anywhere in the world. But in the States, they don't even seem to get like the fun parts that we get here. Like, they don't spend the morning with the bride getting ready. They have to pay for their own stuff. And there's often like 20 of them. Yeah. Whereas, in Ireland, I've been a bridesmaid twice, and they're lovely experiences. You're with the bride in the morning of, and you're part of her squad. And yes, you do have to help her go to the toilet. That is a given.
That was a very funny beat in the montage.
But to me, she's actually the worst bridesmaid in the world for doing 2 weddings in the one day. I'd have killed her.
Yeah, that's it. It's a really funny set piece, and it's a really funny, like, it's a great kind of how we introduce the character. But if either of those women found out, they'd probably be devastated.
Yeah, and the only one that does really cop it is Judy Greer's character. She's like, "Where have you been all night? You've barely been here." She's literally been hopping in a cab, changing in the back seat, and driving to Brooklyn of all places in a yellow cab. It's funny, by the end of the night, the taxi driver is down from $300 to $160 because he couldn't stop looking in the mirror.
But that's a great line. It's like $160. You know what what you did.
You know what you did.
And the taxi driver is kind of like,
I do,
he accepts it. Yeah.
And I mean, $160 for the full night. It's kind of shit, but I guess he was a bit of a perv who liked looking in the mirror too much. So fair enough. So Jane is brilliant at being a bridesmaid. She's so brilliant that, you know, we eventually learned that she's been a bridesmaid 27 times.
Yeah.
And not only that, she's kept all of the outfits. Now, this woman lives in New York. She's a tiny closet in a tiny apartment, and it's just rammed full of these 27 dresses.
I think James Marsden says it's like this is New York closet space. Yeah. This is ridiculous.
What are you doing? But she just loves them so much, and yeah, she's just I can't imagine being that girl. Like, you know, being so enchanted by weddings that you'd love that many of them.
Just the concept of weddings. She doesn't seem, not even like the brides and grooms themselves. Just the concept of matrimony.
I think
the James says it like you're in love with weddings and not actual like marriage.
Yeah. So James is a wedding reporter.
Yes.
And he really doesn't want to be, but he's really, really good at it. And he's begging his editor, who's played by the lady who plays Jan in The Office, I just always expect to be a raving lunatic, but she's quite normal in this. She is just like, oh, will you just do your job? And he's like, no, I really want to write features. He's like, I've got a great idea. He noticed her basically at the two weddings flitting back and forth, and he copped her first of all because she's hot, but then he's like, what is this woman doing? He saw her getting in and out of the taxi.
His opening line is I loved your thong, by the way. Which is one of the most psychotic lines. If someone said that, it doesn't matter if he looked like James Marsden, I would call the police.
Yeah, he is a bit, yeah, exactly, you're right. He is a bit creepy, and she does treat him like a creep for quite a long time, but he's so cute.
There's a scene with him and his editor where like he's in the wedding section, but he keeps trying to write these like hard-hitting journalistic pieces, and one of them is like the exploitation of workers in the handmade lace factory. And you're like, oh God, you're unbearable.
Yeah, but he's trying to like find his groove, and he thinks that in order to be a real journalist, you have to be a bit exploitative, which you don't. You know, you'll make more money if you are.
Yeah.
But he eventually thinks, look, this girl is a super bridesmaid. I've got a great story. And his editor's like, fine, just write it. Like, I'll read it when, you know. And these were the days when journalists were allowed to take weeks to write a feature, whereas nowadays not so much, and not in my career ever. So he's kind of intent on following her. So when he does find her file of facts in the back of the cab, he's like, bingo, I'm gonna follow this bitch. Because it's 2008, she's nothing digital, so her whole life is in this file of facts. And it actually made me quite sad and nostalgic for those days, because, you know, this isn't a film about smartphones or about apps, or it's a film about newspapers and about file of faxes.
I think they kind of make fun of her because at the time they're saying like, why don't you have a BlackBerry or Palm Pilot?
They say something like a pocket calendar, and it's like, did anyone ever use those sidekick things that they used to have on the hills that you could text on?
But we were talking about it before, like it's the most tropey rom-com.
Yes.
And the secret article or the secret journalist is one of my favorite rom-com tropes, where he's like secretly writing an article that's like going to be hurtful to one of the main characters. So.
And she's already annoyed at him before she even finds out about the article, because she realizes that he's the journalist who writes all these beautiful pieces that she kind of freakishly cuts out of the wedding section and keeps.
That's a little bit
serial obsessive, and she's annoyed because she's like, you said your name was Kevin, and he's like, yeah, I use a byline so the brides don't stalk me, which is fair, I get that. We're talking about the tropes, right? So I made a list of all of the tropes. Now this is obviously scooting ahead, but you'll see as we discuss the film how present they are. So it has the cute kids at the beginning, it has tying. There's always a woman tying a man's tie in a rom-com, always. It has the trope of fainting or being knocked out.
She gets body checked of that bouquet.
Absolutely.
That's like Bundy Aki coming in for the
100%.
The tackle.
And she also has that trope of she's waking up from her fainting and the first person she sees is Kevin and his beautiful little face. And that's a classic. The dead mother, of course. Mistaken identity. Unrequited love, because she is in love with her boss George.
The hapless father.
The hapless father, he's not, he's a bereaved father, but he doesn't really know how to handle the kids, so she's basically ended up raising her little sister, who we'll get to. There are montages galore in this film. There's an underlying secret project, which in this case is James Marsden's article. There's a rainstorm fight, because people have to fight in the rain. There's car trouble. There's drunk vulnerability that leads to kissing, that leads to riding. And there's communal singing. Which is always brilliant in a rom-com. There's also obviously betrayal. There's a taxi chase. because you have to have a taxi chase. There's the woman just falling over for no reason, which she does at the very end when she jumps onto the boat. There's a public declaration over a mic on the boat, and there's a triumphant ending that we will also get to, but that's quite a list, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's all there.
It also has a cute at-risk youth.
It does. The little brother, Pedro.
And a cute dog, Gatsby, the Bernese mountain dog.
See, I mean, like, it's like they made a list of all of the things that people like in a rom-com and just got them all in there.
Yeah.
I mean, fair play. That's excellent writing. and all very believable. Like, nothing feels shoehorned in. It's only when you watch it forensically that you notice these things.
Yeah, it goes at a clip. It's not, as I said, I'm going to make fun of this movie for quite some time, but it's a fun watch.
It's a totally fun watch. So basically, Jane is in love with her boss George, who's just the most vanilla man of all time. I don't personally get it, but she's just been in love with him, and so much so that she says "I love you" to him, and Judy Greer's character just smacks her across the face.
Oh, that is incredible!
There's
One
so
of the
much
best rom-com
violence
slaps
in naughty's rom-coms.
Yeah.
The more I watch for this podcast, the more I realise just how violent they were. But it's brilliant because you always wanted to do that to her friend, just wallop them across the face just to get them to wake up and cop on. And she actually says, "Oh, thanks, I needed that." You know? It's brilliant.
What the actor who plays George Burns, something?
Ed Burns. He's married to Christy Turlington, the supermodel.
Oh, really?
And he used to direct rom-coms. He directed Cameron Diaz in a 90s rom-com called She's the One, and he's also in The Holiday, so he's quite a rom-com pedigree. He's
kind of got and I'm forgiving this, Ed, he's got that kind of blandly handsome romantic false lead.
Totally vanilla.
I think the only interesting, he's got a great kind of New York accent. He
does.
And there's in the montage where they show him as a baby, like even he as a baby looks like he has a New York accent. He just has this face that says like Brooklyn or Queens or wherever he's from.
And when I was watching The Holiday this week as well, he's very New York in that. Like, he's breaking up with Cameron Diaz at the start, and he has a full-blown dog accent. But yes, he is this man who owns this ethical company for mountain climbing and hiking. You don't really know.
Urban Everest.
Yeah, but what do? They sell clothes? You don't really
some
know.
Sort of like Roz Purcell, Hike Life.
Yeah,
kind
maybe.
Of, it would definitely be an Instagram
nowadays.
Instagram
100%.
account.
I was like, does he sell hiking holidays? It's kind of vague. It is.
I think it's a magazine. I think because they're doing a layout at the start. They're shooting a
campaign. I was like, is this a catalogue?
I got the kind of idea that it's a magazine, because that's usually that's another rom-com trope.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But it's kind of boring. Whatever it is, kind of vanilla like him. And the most interesting thing about him is that he has this lovely dog. Gorgeous dog.
A Bernese mountain dog.
Because of course the man needs a mountain dog. But yeah, Jane is hopelessly in love with him, and she's just getting up the courage to tell him when her sister lands for a visit. Tess. Now, what did you text me the other night about Tess?
My note on Tess from this movie is Tess deserves the electric chair.
I agree. And why? Tell us why.
She is the younger sister of Jane, actually played by a slightly older actress,
Malin Ackerman.
Yeah, and she's kind of the flighty, so the mother has died and Jane became kind of the mother figure, and the implication is that she's always the bratty sister that hasn't had any responsibility. Yeah. She's a fashion correspondent. She works in fashion.
I think they said at one point she's a publicist.
Yeah.
And she's been in Milan for 6 months.
And she's kind of flighty, and she's, she makes Jane do all the work, and she kind of flies in. And Jane is, as you say, kind of pulling up the nerve to talk to George, and she comes in and steals her thunder completely and starts not only going out with George, but lying to George about who she is. That's in order to make her fall in love with him.
Tess basically doesn't know who she is. She's never had to form a personality because Jane just does everything for her. So she is, she decides in order to really enrapture George, she's going to say she's a vegetarian because he is, and that she loves hill walking and she loves animals. None of these things are true. She's just kind of pretending and going along with it.
Yes.
And Jane is just like pissed off about that because she's like, this is all lies. But instead of talking to her sister about it, or saying maybe just be yourself, she just lets it happen. There's
a montage of George and Tess falling in love while Jane is looking.
Jane is always with them like a third wheel.
Yeah, she's a third wheel, but they always just have her like eating nervously.
She's eating so much. Yeah. This is another classic rom-com trope that we could do without, is her just literally shoving food in her face, probably so she doesn't speak. But she also makes a comment at some point that she's like, I've much more practice eating than Tess does. Yes. Like, she's the ordinary girl who eats in comparison.
It's very, so like her name is Jane. They kind of the movie.
Jane.
Yeah, the movie proposes that Katherine Heigl is the the plain sister.
Yeah.
And it's just like, okay, we're not going to stretch believability to this.
Well, that's the thing, because they actually, like, she's famous on Grey's Anatomy for having this tumbling blonde hair and for being this sexy underwear model. So and even in Knocked Up, she's stunning. Like, even though they do call her fat and Knocked Up and tell her she needs to lose weight, unbelievable. But they've actually dyed her hair a kind of mousy colour in this film and cut it short, and her makeup's very subdued and her clothes are very subdued.
It is very much like they've dressed Tess in this like bombshell green, yellow dress, and all makeup to the nines, and then I think she's wearing a cardigan or something like that.
Tess's makeup is fabulous throughout. I was like, that's a lovely smoky eye and a lovely. She has like a platinum blonde swingy bob, and she doesn't need a bra because she's just. Ugh.
It's the Derry Girls thing. You're judging her eyebrows, not the content of her character. I know you probably came across this fact as well, but they were saying that in the dress sequence, we're jumping ahead again. Sorry. But the dress
That's
sequence
what we do here,
she tries on, it was the costume department said it was really difficult to find dresses that would make
Katherine Heigl look
unflattering, which feels like a line from like Tahani on The Good Place. That she's like, no, it's impossible to make me look unflattering
bad,
in a dress.
But it's true. She's got like this, perfect figure, for want of a better word. She's fabulous. But they really do succeed because some of the dresses are heinous.
Yes.
Not so much like the one that Kevin is saying to her, that's disgusting. That's probably the best one of the bunch. Like in one, she's basically like a plantation Gone with the Wind
Gone with
girl.
the Wind, yeah. Which is a thing. I thought it was a joke for the. I thought it was a joke for the movie, but like. Plantation
Civil War chic.
Civil War weddings are a thing, which just feels like a bad joke.
It's bad. It's like, bad. But she has another one that she's basically like an LA stripper.
Yeah.
There's one where she's underwater. There's a suit that was an androgynous wedding. Where the lads wore dresses and the girls wore
suits. Yeah. She gets to wear a spiked collar for Kirsten Ritter's wedding.
She plays like the receptionist who's she's very underused. She's just like the girl whose engagement party and then wedding happen.
I came of age in like 2007, 2008. So a lot of the girls I fancied were like emo and goth. And like when they cut to Katherine Heigl in the spiked collar and
were you into
the
it?
Thing, my fiance leaned over and was like, "Is this doing anything for you?" I was like, "A little bit, yeah."
I love your fiance.
Yes.
We need to get her on the podcast.
Yeah,
she'd be great by the sound of things.
I love her as well, but she cannot retain movie facts.
Like
we will watch a film and then it's like, I love the part when this happened. She's like, what? Did that happen? It's a wonderful.
Do you know what my husband hates? When I relate everything happening on screen back to us. So I'm like, have you ever done that? And he's like, this is not about me. He hates it so much. Straight men in the room, do your wives do that? No,
okay. I'm glad. Thanks.
Just me. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Don't listen to this episode. So then basically what happens is Jane actually finds herself in the middle of George proposing to Tess. She's walked in early. The fanfare has gone off. The sign has been dropped that says, "Will you marry me?" And she's just standing there like an absolute gobshite. It's awful.
Again, she drives out she gets a cab out of her way because he left his wallet.
Yeah.
And
she loves him.
She loves him so much, but I was like, he'll get it tomorrow, Jane. It's fine now. And then it allows her to be there for this incredibly awkward, where she's trying to edge around the band and can't really find her way out of this
awful,
horrible situation.
And this is another thing in the States. They do tend to get married and engaged quite quickly.
Yeah.
There's no like living together for 5 years. Maybe there should be.
Yeah, I think that getting engaged to someone before having lived with them is just it's unwise. It's a terrible decision.
Yes. Yeah. Now, narratively, it works.
Yes.
We'll allow it. So the wedding is planned quite quickly. I think she has 3 weeks.
Because
Tess has not only stolen Jane's dream of wearing her mother's wedding dress, her dead mother's wedding dress. She's also stolen her dream location, which is the boathouse in Central Park. And Jane is just supposed to be chill with this. Tess is like, I'm getting married first, so like, deal with it.
Is it too soon to talk about the wedding dress?
No, let's talk about the wedding dress.
So Tess inherits the wedding dress that Katherine Heigl's character always dreamed of getting married in.
Yeah.
And then I think this is probably when I texted you, Tess deserves the electric chair. They come in and it turns out that Tess has cut up the wedding dress to just add accents to a much more modern, expensive dress.
It is lovely, though, her new dress.
Yeah. But hands Katherine Heigl like, oh no, you can have the scraps if you want.
Yeah. That is her breaking point.
Yeah. Which you get the great quote.
Today, you're just some bitch who broke my heart and cut up my mother's wedding dress.
Yeah, and that is probably one of the better quotes of this movie. It's pretty intense.
I mean, I get it. Like, I understand both points of view. You should maybe ask before you cut up your mother's classic 1970s wedding dress. But she has actually, at the beginning, Tess has made a comment about it being synthetic, the dress.
Yeah.
She picks up their parents' wedding photo and goes, ooh, synthetic dress. So you get a vibe that she was never going to happily wear it.
Yeah.
And then she says something bitchy like it never would have fit you anyway to Jane. Yeah. Tess is an absolute weapon. She's turning bridezilla at this point as well, because she realises that she hasn't been herself for one moment. And Jane is basically like, you tell him who you are or I will.
Yes.
You tell him you eat meat, you don't like dogs, you don't like the outdoors. Like, just tell him.
Kevin is covering the George and Tess wedding, which is why he's doing it as a kind of a pretense. He says he's doing it to cover George and Tess's wedding, but he's actually kind of doing his article about Jane.
He's working on his story,
And they have that great, because he's the guy that writes all the incredible wedding articles that she loves, but it turns out he's this like spiky wedding hater.
Yes.
And Katherine Heigl has that other great line, which is like, I feel like I just found out my favourite love song is about a sandwich.
Exactly.
It was really...
So he's a cynic, and straight off the bat she's like, oh brilliant, the guy who doesn't believe in marriage is writing the marriage column, amazing. And he is, but we do find out why he's cynical, because he's been betrayed.
Yeah, and I think they do that beat very quickly. Like it's they kind of throw away that line, and then I feel like it maybe got lost in an edit or something.
Maybe, yeah.
Like, one of the criticisms of this movie maybe is that they set up Kevin as this like spiky, cynical character, but I don't know if they do enough to soften him to make the ending kind of actually work.
I don't know. I felt it was always kind of an act, and I think that's why casting him was so genius, because he looks adorable. So you're just like, I doesn't really think that, or you're like, oh, the right woman could change him.
He does have that great before, like he's saying that she talks about one of his articles, like the Keegan wedding, where the brother came home from Afghanistan and the dad walked it. Then he was like, oh no, I don't even remember it. And then before their big kiss, he goes, I cried like a baby at the Keegan wedding.
Yeah.
And you're like, so he is a little
I
bit
knew he was taking the piss, because you wouldn't do that job. You couldn't do that job. As a former journalist, I know that you couldn't day in, day out do that if you didn't have some sort of positive feelings about weddings. Yeah. And it must be quite a nice job. Like, some people have a terrible beat. Like, it's not a bad one.
I don't know.
Happy ever afters.
I wonder if he just had to do wedding after wedding after wedding after wedding, you'd get a bit of cynical about it.
I thought there was going to be a twist in that his editor was his ex, but that's actually a runaway bride. Yeah. Richard Gere's editor, Rita Wilson, is his ex-wife. But that would have been another trope they could have shoehorned in there, because then you'd understand why he hated his job so much and why she was kind of reluctant to give him a chance, because she's his ex-wife. Anyway, call me Hollywood. I'll help you with your scripts next time.
It's almost like you write rom-coms.
I know,
yourself.
Shocker. So basically what happens is Jane is so pissed off at this point. The dress was really the turning point, that she takes revenge in possibly the meanest way I've ever seen. At the rehearsal dinner, she makes a slideshow of baby photos of Tess and George, but instead of telling a nice story about her sister, she basically shows her up for every one of her lies. So she shows her being, a slappery cheerleader with the lads.
I have questions about who took these photos.
I know,
and
they're
where
brilliant.
They're photos of her getting kind of felt up as a cheerleader. I was like, who was
and
taking
as a
this
model?
photo?
And like there's just her getting felt up loads.
Yeah. There's photos of her like absolutely horsing into a plate of ribs.
Yeah.
And somebody is taking a photo from like 2 feet away. I was like, who took that photo?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's brilliant. They must have so much crack shooting those photos that to be used to such effect.
There's one where she's literally holding a baby and pointing at it going like, ugh.
And one where she's like, ugh, to a dog as well. It's basically like, and George is just sitting there getting more and more pissed off. But it's the final straw is when he finds out that she's been kind of mean to Pedro, his little brother.
Yeah.
She's tried to hire him as a cleaner when George just is like, that's disgraceful.
I was confused about that, but I think she was passing off the fact that she was cleaning, but she was actually paying Pedro to do it.
Yeah, and also child labour. Yes. He wasn't thrilled about that.
Although the scene where
Mr. Ethical guy.
The scene where Pedro was singing Shakira while hoovering. Excellent.
Absolutely brilliant. The music in this film is actually great. He is singing Hips Don't Lie while hoovering with his iPod. There's a Natasha Bedingfield song.
Yes.
There's Valerie by Amy Winehouse. There's a great solid middle noughties soundtrack in there. But the big song that we have to discuss is Benny and the Jets.
Yes, so this is this is really charming that they're singing the wrong lyrics, sing along.
Yes,
neither of them know the actual lyrics.
I don't know the lyrics. Do you? I know Benny and the Jets.
I know it takes about 4 minutes to end. You think that song is over, and he just keeps harping Benny and the Jets at the set thing is love.
It's a great song. She's something about electric boobs, doesn't she? Yeah, it's brilliant. But I'm not. Is this just before or just after the shenanigans with the? I think it's just after the engagement dinner or the rehearsal dinner.
No, it's before the rehearsal dinner. So Kevin has fallen for Jane at this point, I think.
Yes.
But he walks in on her doing the tasting menu with George and realizes that she's in love with him,
George,
and gets a little bit spiky and dickish about it, and kind of forces her into a situation where they have to drive out to get some like wedding crockery or something.
And this is where the car trouble and rain and vulnerable moment turning into riding happens.
Yes.
Because basically they get locked. They've been lashed on, their car is broken down, they're at the point where they hate each other, but they don't really, they're both mad about each other, and they're like, oh, just have a drink. And then next minute they're dancing and singing on the bar with the whole bar. And it's brilliant. It's
brilliant. Although the crowd are acting like that is Elton himself up there.
Yeah.
And somebody comes up to them the next day going like, you were great. And I was like, okay, it was a drunken thing. I don't think it was warranted that much.
I mean, I really want to do that. Yeah. Like, how can I get myself in that scenario?
I think any wedding around 2 a.m, you'd probably be fine.
True. But what happens then is the next morning, the paper comes out with his article about her that he thought wasn't coming out yet. He'd only submitted it. This was a mean editor move.
Yeah.
Because he'd submitted it to be like, look, I have it. There is an article here, but it's not finished. Give me another week.
She promised him the week as well, and then just ran it.
So that's another reason I was like, is this his bitch ex-wife? But no, it wasn't. It's just his bitch editor.
Yeah.
But there's loads of photographs that he's taken of her in this delightful wedding dress montage. So basically she's mortified. He slagged Tess off, so Tess is livid.
She slaps him. This is the second slap in the movie. Yeah. Really a proper one as well.
Proper stinger. Yeah. It's like at this point so much has happened and we haven't even got to the slideshow yet where the wedding is basically off after that because George has revealed, or Tess has revealed to George that she is, the person that she actually is.
It happens pretty much immediately after, and that's why I think she's given a script because Tess, again, electric chair, goes like, I don't want you to ruin this wedding any more than you already have, or something to that effect. So she reads the script that Tess gave her, but over the like really hurtful photographs.
I love when like old media is used as such a trope, in like newspaper being used, old photographs being used. It feels so much better than TikTok dances being used in films. The new Mean Girls, for example, dreadful.
But then we get so Judy Greer of all people is the one who is holding a cocktail, I think, in every single scene.
And pissed, hungover looking. She's
even the scenes where she's in an office. But kind of she's the one that comes up there and was like, that was really mean.
Yeah, she's like, if I said it was bad, it's bad. Because she's like, at one point she calls the sister a selfish whore. Yeah, that's selfish whore. So she's not a Tess fan, but she's like, Jesus, that was bad. And Jane's like, shit, was it? Okay, I went a bit too far. But then George rings Jane and is like, oh, since I dumped your sister, I've no date for tomorrow night. Will you come? And she's like, yeah, I'll go with you to this event. And they go to the office and she kisses him, which is pretty fucked up when you think about it.
Yeah, no, watching it back, you're like, that's your ex-fiancé's sister. That's
and it was only
cool.
like yesterday that you broke up. But she kisses him and she magically feels nothing.
Yeah.
It is a chemistry-free kiss, which I love. It's another trope. It's like, oh, I thought I was in love with you, but this is crap. Get away from me, your shit. And then that's what makes her realise that Kevin is... Because they have... Sorry, after their singing performance, they have had sex in the back of his car.
They stay the night in a car under a tree, which is psychotic to me as well.
It's another thing that people... It happens all the time in American movies, and I'm like, nobody actually does that, do they?
I don't know. There was a bar. Was there no motel or?
Yeah, maybe we just haven't lived.
I thought it was going to spin off into a horror movie there, where like
something lands on the bonnet,
a boat hook breaks through the window.
I mean, that would have been a spin-off. Yeah, we could remake
could have been
it.
Tess.
Maybe
She has serial killer energy.
It could have been Tess. But yeah, they've shagged in the car, and now upon kissing George and feeling nothing, she realizes Kevin is the one. So in a slight break from tradition, the woman is the one who runs across town.
Yes.
Does the taxi cab chase.
Gets Ziggy again.
Yes, and of course he is. She does get Ziggy again. Sorry, I blanked that there. And he's
Ziggy's the taxi driver.
Ziggy's the taxi driver, and he's raging that she's not getting changed this time. He's literally like, "Oh man, you're not taking off your clothes." But Kevin is doing his last ever wedding piece, and he is about to depart on a boat, because this wedding is on a boat. Because in New York you can have 50 different types of weddings if you like. And she does this running jump and makes it onto the boat, but then she falls over because she has to humiliate herself. It just has to happen.
And this bride, I love this bride. I want to talk about this bride.
She's very
conservatively 45 minutes.
Yeah.
She's Jane should make her new sister.
She should. Yeah. She's very supportive. She looks very Staten Island.
Yeah.
She's wearing a ridiculous headpiece that looks out of the 80s, not from 2008.
She recognises Jane from the article, is really happy that she's here. When Jane explains that she's there pursuing love, she's not like, you're upstaging my wedding. She's like, let's get a spotlight. Let's get you up on stage. During her speech, she gets like, can we have a follow spotlight on like
Kevin?
She should have been maid of honor.
It was brilliant. Yeah, she should have been maid of honor at the end. It was brilliant. And she gives this earnest speech, and of course, straight away he's like, okay, I forgive you. Let's be together forever.
He says, get over here. Which is,
again, quite commanding.
I looked over at my fiance, I was like, did I do anything for you? And she's like, yeah. I was like, okay.
And they kind of have a weird kiss at the end where it's a bit awkward, but they do that classic rom-com pull away. So they're on the boat and New York is in the background. But there's the very best ending, I think, of a rom-com, because it's a kind of a surprise reveal. I love a reveal. Yeah. It's the Drag Race fan in me. You see Judy Greer and you see Tess, they've obviously made up. You see Tess.
Tess is the maid of honor. The maid of honor. Wedding. No, she should have been thrown into the ocean.
She should have not been allowed anywhere near this wedding.
Although they say she's like, I live with like 7 with roommates.
Yeah,
I'm broke. Yeah.
Like, what, she's just suddenly decided to be herself.
Yeah.
They try and redeem her, and they try and make out like her and George are going to get back together. Is George going to tell her he kissed her sister?
Probably not.
Who knows? And Pedro's there, and Pedro's like, Tess is hot.
Pedro is into Tess, which is,
I mean, she's pretty. We get it. But it pulls away then at the very end. So Judy Greer walks down the aisle. Tess walks down the aisle. They're all standing there. James Marsden looks thrilled. And the last scene is all of the former brides wearing her bridesmaids' dresses.
I love this reveal, although they're all wearing the bridesmaids' dresses from their wedding.
Yeah.
Which is actually, when you think about it, slightly psychotic. If you were like, come be my bridesmaid, you have to wear the bridesmaid's dress you made me wear for your wedding. Especially
the one that's like, I don't know, a swimsuit.
Snorkel,
a snorkel.
A scuba suit.
Also, there's some very culturally insensitive moments throughout. There's a
kimono.
And
who James calls Show Me Benihana.
Yeah, oh God. The naughties were a different world. Altogether.
There's the sari, I suppose, at the start.
There is a sari, and they do keep making this joke throughout. It's a real bridesmaid's dress joke that, you can shorten it and wear it again. Yeah. When they said it about the sari, I was like, really? I don't think you can. I don't think that would work quite as well. But it is a very satisfying ending. Like Jane had said at one point, like, I love weddings and I love being a bridesmaid because I love being there for these people on their special day, and one day they'll all be there for me on mine.
Yeah.
So she's come full circle. She's got, her dream has come true. She's got the guy. It's maybe not the guy she thought, but it's even better. And she's delighted.
And there's the running thread, because both of them say, what's your favourite part of the wedding? It's like, when everyone looks at the bride, I like looking at the groom and seeing his reaction. And James, he sells that kind of reaction at the start, which puts, again, as somebody who's getting married next year, we watched that, I was like, oh God, what? Like, my face never does what I tell it to. So probably when my bride is coming down the aisle, I'll just have a look of sheer like
terror,
fear and panic.
Well, do you know what my favourite video, because we didn't have a videographer, so I was crowdsourcing videos for my wedding, and my favourite one is one my best friend Laura took of Joe watching me come down the aisle, because he's kind of clinging the chair at the start, but he kind of looks happy, and then he's smiling more and more at the closer I get, and I'm so glad that I have that like 10 seconds of footage. So just remember not to look like, you're going to the firing squad and you'll be absolutely fine. Richy, thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you for having me on. Yeah, this is
great.
So
when this episode comes out, the Irish Book Awards will have been the night before. So let's just pretend you won.
Or we could, let's record two. One where I declare a fix and one where I declare a victory.
Well, you're my winner because it is one of my favourite books. So Spirit Level, it's out now. You can buy it on Kindle, Audible, everything.
Yes, Kindle, Audible. We have Sean Burke doing the audio, who does an incredible job.
And may I ask about the next book?
It's kind of up in the air what that next book is going to be, so I don't know if I can go on record.
Okay, that's fine. But you're still ruminating.
Yes, I'm actively working on something.
This is the problem. Once you write a book now, you want it to be your job forever, right? Yeah, I'm with you there. At least we can have a support group for one another. So 27 dresses. What would you award it out of 5 in terms of cheesy popcorns?
3 cheesy popcorns and maybe 3.5 after a bottle of wine.
After a bottle of wine? What about after 2 bottles of wine?
After 2 bottles of wine, I probably won't remember it the next day. So
Amazing.